I'm Cassidy Hayes, and by 30, I had everything I thought would finally earn my place in the family. My own condo in Portland's Pearl District, a six-figure income, and a career I built from scratch without a dime from my parents. But none of it ever mattered. Not when I was standing outside a lavish anniversary party I paid for, only to be told by my own father that I wasn't welcome. That night, as I clutched the gift I'd spent months saving for, I finally saw the truth. I was never their daughter. I was just their bank account. But that was the night everything changed. Before I share how I took my power back and finally said no, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like or subscribe if you've ever been treated like you existed only for what you could give, not who you are. This story might just be the wake-up call you've been waiting for. Growing up in our family home in the quiet suburbs of Portland, Oregon, felt less like a nest and more like a stage where I was constantly trying out for a role I could never quite land. I was the middle child, sandwiched between my older sister Brooke and my younger brother, Leo. Brooke was the designated golden child. Perfect blonde hair, a bubbly personality, always the center of attention. Every dance recital, every cheerleading competition, every average report card was met with thunderous applause, celebratory dinners, and expensive gifts from my parents, Arthur and Eleanor Hayes. She was, in their eyes, flawless. Then there was Leo, the baby of the family, the only son, who, despite his constant scrapes with authority and a remarkable ability to fail upward through life, could seemingly do no wrong. He'd barely squeak by in school, get into minor trouble with the law, and my parents would just shake their heads with a fond, exasperated smile, writing it off as boys will be boys. His messes were always cleaned up, his whims indulged, his path smoothed. And me, I was just Cassidy, the responsible one, the studious one, the one who worked tirelessly, endlessly, to earn a flicker of the approval that seemed to be showered upon my siblings effortlessly. I remember bringing home a straight-A report card in middle school, bursting with pride, practically jogging to show it to my mother. She glanced at it, barely a pause in her stirring of dinner, and simply said, "Well, that's what we expect from you, Cassidy. It's what you're supposed to do. No hug, no high five, no special treat. Just an expectation. A given." In high school, I won the state debate competition, a massive achievement I'd poured hundreds of hours into. My father, Arthur, simply nodded when I told him, his gaze already drifting back to the evening news. His only follow-up question was, "That's good, Cassidy. Since you're so good with words, could you help Leo write that essay he's got due? He's really struggling." It was always like that. My accomplishments weren't celebrated. They were leveraged. They were proof of my utility, not my worth. I learned early that for me, recognition was a currency I had to earn at twice the rate for half the payout. This pattern, this constant striving for an unachievable standard, only intensified as we grew older. When it came to college, the contrast became even starker. Brooke, with her barely C average, was sent off to an expensive private university, tuition and living expenses fully covered by my parents. They talked about her college experience as if it were a grand investment, a social opportunity. For me, I received a partial scholarship to the state university, a testament to years of late-night studying and diligent effort. But the scholarship wasn't enough. My parents' response was a shrug. "You're smart, Cassidy," my mother Eleanor had said. "You'll figure it out." So I figured it out. I worked 2 demanding part-time jobs throughout college, serving tables, tutoring late into the night, juggling textbooks and shifts, all while maintaining a rigorous course load in finance. I missed out on social events, on spring breaks, on the typical college experience, always working, always saving, always pushing myself. When I graduated with honors in finance, a culmination of years of relentless hard work, there was no grand celebration, no family trip, no congratulatory party. My parents claimed there was a family emergency that day. The emergency? Leo, my younger brother, needed help moving into his new apartment. That was it. My parents and Brooke were there, helping him unpack boxes, while I stood alone in a cap and gown, clutching a diploma that felt heavier than it should have. That feeling of being an afterthought even on my biggest day solidified a quiet understanding within me. I was fundamentally different from them. Their love, their attention, their presence seemed to operate on a different economy than mine. After college, I started at the bottom of a reputable financial advisory firm in downtown Portland. I worked 70-hour weeks, pushing myself beyond exhaustion, determined to prove my worth, not just to my colleagues and clients, but to myself. I was relentless. Within 5 years, I had built an impressive client base, specializing in tech industry investments during Portland's booming digital market. My expertise paid off. By the time I hit 30, I was making more money than I had ever imagined possible. I bought my own apartment in the trendy Pearl District, with sweeping views of the city and the distant Cascade Mountains, a place I'd celebrated alone with a bottle of champagne because my family had never once visited, despite countless invitations. That's when the calls started coming in, more frequently, more urgently. Cassidy, your father and I are struggling with the mortgage this month since he cut back his hours. Could you help just this once? My mother's voice, Eleanor, always had that particular cadence, a strange blend of entitlement and a manufactured helplessness. It was a tone I'd come to dread, a subtle yet insistent pressure that always ended with my checkbook. 1 month turned into 6. 6 months turned into a year. Soon I wasn't just helping. I was paying their entire mortgage. It became a regular line item in my personal budget, a silent, growing resentment in my heart. Then the calls shifted. Cassidy, Leo needs some seed money for his first business venture. He's got this brilliant idea for a food truck. My father, Arthur, would boom over the phone, full of an almost theatrical enthusiasm for Leo's latest pipe dream. I'd wire the money. 3 months later, the food truck would be abandoned, its entrepreneurial promise fading faster than the steam from a hot dog cart. Then came his second venture, an app that never made it past the concept stage. Then his third, a boutique coffee shop that he lost interest in as soon as the novelty wore off, leaving me to cover the remaining lease and equipment payments. Each failure was a new drain, a fresh wound to my bank account and my dwindling patience. Brooke's wedding was a financial sinkhole. As maid of honor, I was expected to shoulder the entire cost of her bachelorette party in Las Vegas for 8 women. When I timidly mentioned my budget constraints to my mother, she pulled me aside, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that still makes my skin crawl. Your sister only gets married once, Cassidy. Do you want to ruin her special day because you're being selfish with your money? The guilt trip was effective, as always. I paid, every dime. The pattern was stark, undeniable, and increasingly painful. I was systematically excluded from family gatherings unless my checkbook was required. Last Christmas, I found out they had all gone to Lake Tahoe for a ski trip, only when they posted photos on social media, laughing, bundled up in designer ski gear, toasting marshmallows by a roaring fire. When I called my mother, a knot of hurt in my stomach, to ask why I hadn't been invited, she sounded genuinely surprised. Oh, Cassidy, we didn't think you'd be interested. You're always working. Yet less than 3 weeks later, Leo called, frantic, because his car was about to be repossessed. I paid off the $12,000 loan, the bitter irony not lost on me. I was too busy for family fun, but never too busy for family emergencies. The planning for their 40th anniversary party began 6 months ago. My mother's call came, unusually warm and friendly. Cassidy, dear, your father and I are celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. We want to have a special celebration at the Emerald Spire. The Emerald Spire, I knew it. It was the most exclusive rooftop restaurant in Portland, famous for its private events, its celebrity clientele, and its breathtaking views of the city skyline. When I looked it up later, my stomach dropped. The rental fee alone would cost tens of thousands. That sounds wonderful, Mom, I said, genuinely happy to be included in the planning for once. A sliver of hope, foolish as it now seems, began to bloom in my chest. Maybe this time. Maybe this was finally it. We'll need your help with the deposit, she continued, her voice taking on that familiar, expectant tone. It's $20,000 for the private dining room and the initial catering commitment. I swallowed hard. $20,000. That was a significant sum, even for me. But I wanted so desperately to be part of this family milestone, to feel truly welcomed. Of course I can help with that, I replied, forcing a lightness into my voice I didn't feel. Perfect. I'll have the event planner call you for the credit card details, she chirped. We're thinking about 70 guests. 70? 70? That's quite a gathering. Who all is coming? I asked, already calculating the final bill, which would likely exceed $60,000. "Oh, just family and close friends," my mother replied vaguely. "We'll send you the details later." The details never came. Each time I asked about the event planning, my questions were deflected. "Don't worry about it, Cassidy. Just focus on your work. We know how busy you are." It was the familiar brush-off, the casual dismissal that simultaneously flattered my work ethic while subtly reinforcing my exclusion. 2 weeks before the event, a chill of unease snaked through me. I called my sister Brooke to ask what I should wear. "Oh," Brooke sounded genuinely surprised on the phone. "Are you coming? I thought you'd be too busy." "Of course I'm coming. I paid the deposit," I said, confusion evident in my voice. "Right. Well, it's formal black tie." She quickly changed the subject, her tone just a little too quick, a little too dismissive. I should have seen the red flags then, but hope, that stubborn, persistent little thing, blinded me. I spent the next week finding the perfect dress, a classic charcoal gray designer gown that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I bought a set of matching luxury watches for my parents, knowing my father had always admired the brand but claimed it was too extravagant. The gift alone cost $5,000, but I wanted to see their faces when they opened it. I imagined the surprise, the genuine gratitude, maybe even a hint of pride. I told myself this would be the night. This would be the turning point. The event was scheduled for Saturday, October 28th. As the day approached, I felt a familiar anxiety battling with a desperate, persistent hope. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, I still harbored the naive belief that this time would be different. This time, I would be welcomed as a daughter, as a cherished family member, not just as a financial resource. How utterly, completely wrong I was. October 28th arrived with typical Portland weather, a rare sunny autumn day, crisp and clear. I spent extra time getting ready, having my hair and makeup professionally done. The stylist curled my dark hair into elegant waves that framed my face. My makeup was subtle but polished, highlighting my hazel eyes, the only feature my mother had ever complimented. The charcoal gray gown fit perfectly, accentuating my figure without being flashy. I paired it with simple silver stud earrings and the sapphire pendant my grandmother, Rose, had left me, the only family member who had ever shown me unconditional love. The gift box with the watches sat carefully on my passenger seat, wrapped in shimmering silver paper with a deep blue ribbon. The Emerald Spire was located downtown, occupying the top floor of a sleek, modern skyscraper with panoramic views of the Willamette River and Mount Hood. I valeted my car and walked into the grand marble-clad lobby, a strange cocktail of excitement and nervousness swirling in my stomach. The elevator attendant nodded respectfully as I stepped in. "Private event for the Hayes family," I told him, my voice a little breathless. "Top floor, ma'am," he replied, pressing the button. When I reached the restaurant's entrance, a hostess in a sleek black uniform greeted me. The space behind her was transformed, bathed in soft, warm lighting, adorned with elegant floral arrangements featuring white roses and delicate silver accents. I could hear the murmur of conversation, punctuated by gentle classical music. It smelled of expensive perfume and celebratory champagne. "Good evening, I'm here for the Hayes anniversary celebration," I said with a confident smile. She glanced down at her tablet, scrolling through what I assumed was the guest list. Her brow furrowed slightly. "Your name, please?" "Cassidy Hayes. I'm Arthur and Eleanor's daughter." She scrolled again, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Her eyes flickered up to mine, then back down to the screen. "I'm sorry, Ms. Hayes. I don't seem to have your name on our list." My smile faltered. My heart gave a strange little lurch. "There must be a mistake," I insisted. My voice tight. "I'm their daughter. I actually paid the deposit for this event." The hostess gave me an apologetic look, her gaze softening slightly. "Let me check with the event coordinator." As she stepped away, I caught glimpses of the celebration through the partially open double doors. The room was breathtakingly beautiful, exactly as I had pictured it. White roses, shimmering silver accents, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow. I recognized my Uncle Thomas, laughing boisterously with a glass of champagne in his hand. My cousin Chloe was taking photos near a magnificent multi-tiered anniversary cake. Everyone was dressed elegantly, exactly as Brooke had told me, black tie. The hostess returned moments later with a woman in a tailored dark suit, who introduced herself as the event coordinator. Her expression was polite but firm, already hinting at an unpleasant truth. Ms. Hayes, I understand there's some confusion. Your name isn't on our approved guest list. That's impossible, I insisted, my cheeks beginning to flush with a creeping embarrassment. I'm their daughter. I paid the $20,000 deposit for this event. She nodded uncomfortably. Yes, we have record of your payment. However, the final guest list was approved by Mr. and Mrs. Hayes personally, and your name is not on it. Perhaps there was a miscommunication? Her voice was careful, professional, but the implication was clear. It wasn't their mistake. People were starting to look our way. Heads turned, whispers began. My carefully constructed composure started to crack. I clutched my gift box tighter, the crisp silver paper crinkling under my trembling fingers. May I speak with my parents, please? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll see if they're available, she replied, disappearing through the doors, leaving me standing alone in the opulent lobby, acutely aware of being watched by the restaurant staff. By arriving guests, by the security cameras that seemed to hum with silent judgment. Minutes ticked by. Each second felt like an hour. I saw more family members arrive. Brooke and her husband, with their 2 children, all dressed impeccably. Brooke saw me waiting in the lobby, her eyes widening for a fraction of a second before she quickly averted her gaze, pulling her husband past me without a single word, without acknowledgement, as if I were a ghost. Leo arrived next, with his latest girlfriend clinging to his arm. He at least had the decency to look embarrassed when he spotted me, mumbling something to his date before they were quickly ushered inside. Their faces a mixture of surprise and avoidance. It was like I was invisible, yet hyper-visible, a public spectacle. After 15 excruciating minutes, the double doors finally opened again. Instead of the event coordinator, my parents emerged. My mother, Eleanor, looked stunning in a shimmering silver gown, her blonde hair perfectly styled. My father, Arthur, was distinguished in his tuxedo, a crystal champagne flute gleaming in his hand. They looked like royalty, gliding through the space. Cassidy, my mother said, her voice low, laced with an irritation that immediately solidified the ice in my veins. What are you doing here? I stared at them, disbelief warring with a rising tide of nausea. What do you mean? It's your anniversary celebration. I paid for it. The words felt pathetic as they left my lips. My father glanced around, clearly concerned about making a scene. His voice was hushed, but his eyes were hard. We appreciate the financial contribution, Cassidy, but this is a family-only event. The words hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut. I am family. I'm your daughter, I protested, the accusation raw in my voice. You know what we mean, my mother sighed impatiently, waving a dismissive hand. This is for people who are actually involved in our lives. We didn't think you'd actually come. You're always working. The same tired excuse, trotted out to justify their callousness. I held out the gift box, my hand trembling slightly. The $5,000 felt like ash in my fingers. I bought you something special. My mother didn't even look at it. Her eyes were fixed on the security guard in the corner, then back to me with a look of cold annoyance. You can send it later. This isn't a good time. Behind them, through the partially open doors, I could see curious faces watching the exchange. My Aunt Susan looked concerned, her eyes darting between my parents and me. Brooke was whispering furiously to her husband, her back mostly turned. Leo was studiously avoiding the scene, pretending to examine his shoes. I don't understand, I said, my voice breaking slightly, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. I paid for this party. How can I not be welcome at it? My father's expression hardened. The facade of polite concern dropped away, revealing the familiar cold authority I'd known my whole life. He set his champagne glass on a nearby table, the crystal clinking sharply, and gestured to someone behind him. A security guard in a dark suit, built like a brick wall, approached. Please remove this woman, my father said coldly, his voice devoid of any warmth, any recognition of our shared blood. She's disturbing our private event. The security guard looked uncomfortable, his gaze briefly meeting mine with something akin to pity, but he stepped forward, his duty clear. Ma'am, I'll have to ask you to leave. I couldn't believe what was happening. My mind raced, trying to process the absurdity, the cruelty. Dad, you can't be serious. His next words would burn in my memory forever, etched there with acid, a brand of humiliation that would never truly fade. He leaned in, his voice low but cutting, designed to inflict maximum damage. "Get this leech out of here." Leech, the word echoed in my head, bouncing off the marble walls of the lobby, drowning out the gentle music from inside. It felt like a physical blow. The security guard gently but firmly took my elbow. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he murmured, clearly embarrassed by the situation. "I need to escort you out." I was too shocked to resist. My legs felt like jelly, my mind a blank. As I was led toward the elevator, I could feel dozens of eyes on my back, a wave of shame washing over me so intense it threatened to drown me. The beautiful gift box, the $5,000 watches, were still clutched uselessly in my hand. The last thing I saw before the elevator doors closed was my mother, Eleanor, returning to the party, already laughing at something someone had said, her back to me, as if her middle child hadn't just been publicly humiliated and ejected from a celebration she had funded. The elevator ride down was silent, the security guard avoiding eye contact, perhaps sensing the raw agony radiating from me. When we reached the lobby, he released my arm. "Your car, ma'am," he asked quietly, his voice unusually gentle. "I can find it myself," I managed to say, my voice barely audible, thick with unshed tears. I walked through the lobby on wobbly legs, acutely aware of the curious glances from the restaurant staff and other patrons. My face burned with humiliation, a fiery brand. The valet brought my car without comment, though I could swear I saw pity in his eyes as he handed me the keys. I placed the gift box carefully on the passenger seat, like a fragile, unwanted relic. I started the engine and drove away from the Emerald Spire, away from the glittering skyline, away from the family that had just made it abundantly clear that my only value to them was financial. The drive home passed in a blur. My vision tunneled as I navigated through downtown Portland on autopilot, my mind replaying my father's words. At one point, I nearly sideswiped a car when changing lanes, the angry honk barely registering through the haze of shock. Leech. The word kept replaying in my mind, my father's disgusted face accompanying it like a terrible, endless slideshow. I somehow made it to my apartment building in the Pearl District, a modern high-rise with incredible views of the city. I'd purchased the condo 2 years ago, a personal milestone I'd celebrated alone, raising a glass to my own hard work. My family had never visited, never even asked to see it, despite numerous invitations. In the parking garage, I turned off the engine and sat in silence, the carefully wrapped gift box mocking me from the passenger seat. The expensive gown suddenly felt constricting, a costume for a part I was never meant to play. The professional makeup, applied with such care, now felt like a mask, cracking under the weight of my raw emotions. For several minutes, I just sat there, trying to process what had happened, trying to breathe past the suffocating shame. When the first sob broke free, it startled me with its intensity. Then another came, and another, until I was gasping for air between violent cries. My carefully applied makeup streamed down my face, leaving streaks of black mascara and dark foundation, as years of rejection, of striving for acceptance, of quiet humiliation, crystallized into this one devastating moment. It was all laid bare. The truth, stark and brutal, stared back at me. I don't know how long I sat there, curled into myself in the silent, cold garage, but eventually my phone rang. The screen showed my best friend Maya's name. With shaking hands, I answered. "Hey Cass, how's the fancy party? Are they treating you like the queen you are for once?" Her cheerful voice was a jarring contrast to my emotional state. "They kicked me out," I whispered, my voice raspy from crying, barely a thread of sound. "What? I can't hear you," Maya said, a flicker of concern entering her tone. "The connection's bad." "They had security remove me," I said louder, a fresh wave of sobbing making the words difficult to form. "Wait, what?" Maya's shock came through clearly, her voice rising in alarm. "Where are you right now?" "In my car, parking garage." "Stay there, I'm coming over, 20 minutes tops." True to her word, Maya arrived in record time. When she saw me, still sitting in my car, mascara streaked down my face, my eyes swollen and red, she didn't hesitate. She flung open the passenger door, gently moved the gift box, and pulled me into a fierce, much-needed hug. "Tell me everything," she demanded, her voice firm with outrage. And so I did. The words poured out between fresh bouts of tears. The guest list exclusion, my parents' cold dismissal, the security escort, the leech comment. Maya listened, her expression transitioning from shock to righteous outrage. Those entitled, manipulative, soul-sucking vampires, she finally spat when I finished, her voice trembling with anger on my behalf. Cass, this is beyond dysfunctional. This is abuse. They're my family, I said weakly, the default response I'd used to justify their behavior for years, a shield I'd clung to even as it crumbled. No, Maya said firmly, holding my face in her hands, forcing me to meet her gaze. Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs. Family doesn't publicly humiliate each other. Family doesn't take and take and take without giving anything back. What they did tonight, that wasn't family, Cassidy. That was cruelty. We made our way up to my apartment where Maya, ever practical, helped me out of the expensive gown and into comfortable sweatpants and an old t-shirt. She then gently removed my ruined makeup while I sat numbly on the edge of my bathtub, staring at my reflection with a sense of profound emptiness. Then she poured us both large glasses of red wine, ordered delivery from my favorite Thai restaurant, and settled me on the couch. You know the worst part? I said, staring into my wine glass, the familiar weight of dread settling back into my chest. I have records of everything I've ever given them. Every loan, every gift, every bill paid. I keep meticulous financial records. It's literally my job. My voice cracked. But I've never had the courage to actually add it all up, to see the total. Maybe it's time, Maya suggested quietly, her gaze gentle, understanding. I nodded, reaching for my laptop. While we waited for the food, I opened my personal finance tracking software. I had a special category, tucked away, almost hidden, labeled Family Support. I had been faithfully documenting every transaction for years, a silent, painful ledger of my efforts to buy love. With a few clicks, I generated a report. The number that flashed on the screen made us both gasp. $372,145.38 over the past decade, almost $400,000. My God, Cass, Maya whispered, her eyes wide as she stared at the screen. That's a house. That's multiple college educations. That's retirement savings. That's a fortune. I scrolled through the itemized list, each entry a stab to the heart. Memories attached to each line. Leo's failed businesses, Brooke's extravagant wedding and subsequent home renovation, my parents' never-ending mortgage payments during their perpetually rough patches, their supposed medical bills, car payments for my father's new luxury sedan, luxury vacations to places like Cancun and Hawaii that I wasn't invited to join, but definitely paid for. And that doesn't even include tonight's $20,000 deposit, I said hollowly, the number on the screen a monument to my misplaced generosity. Something shifted inside me as I stared at that staggering figure. The overwhelming hurt and confusion, the raw anguish, began to morph, solidify, crystallize into something harder. A quiet, simmering rage began to replace the devastation. It wasn't the kind of rage that burst forth in shouts, but a cold, steady burn that promised a reckoning. On a hunch, a horrible, gut-wrenching feeling, I opened my credit card app to check recent transactions. My breath hitched. They're still using my card, I said in disbelief, my voice barely a whisper. Look at these charges from today. Additional catering, $4,500. Premium bar package, $3,200. Anniversary cake from Celebrity Bake Shop, $800. They didn't even tell me, I whispered, my voice raw. The new anger a thin, vibrating wire beneath my skin. They just kept charging. Then I opened Instagram, the social media platform they use to flaunt their lives. Sure enough, Brooke had already posted photos from the event. One showed my parents, Arthur and Eleanor, cutting the elaborate cake I had unknowingly paid for. The caption read, "Celebrating 40 years of the perfect love story with our tight-knit family. So blessed to have parents who taught us what unconditional love truly means." Unconditional love. The hypocrisy was a bitter taste in my mouth. I scrolled through more photos. One showed Leo presenting my parents with what appeared to be plane tickets. A smug grin plastered across his face. His caption, "Alaska cruise for the anniversary couple. Can't wait to hear about your adventures." The Alaska cruise, the exact luxury voyage I had booked and paid for 3 months ago as their anniversary gift. Quietly, anonymously, because I wanted it to be a pure gesture of love. Now it was being claimed as his gift. Another photo showed Brooke's husband, a slick grin on his face, raising a toast to Arthur and Eleanor. The caption read, "And to the wonderful family vacation they're hosting for all of us in Universal Studios next month." The Universal Studios trip, The multi-$1,000 package I had arranged and funded as a surprise for my niece and nephew, his children. Now it was being claimed by others, leveraged for their adoration. "They're taking credit for my gifts," I said, my voice strangely calm now. A chilling stillness settling over me. "They're using my money to buy themselves adoration." Maya looked from the phone to me, her eyes mirroring the cold fury in mine. "What are you going to do?" I closed the laptop with a quiet click and set down my wine glass. The hurt was still there, a dull ache beneath the surface, but now it was crystallizing into something harder, more resolute. I am done being their ATM. I slept surprisingly well that night, as if my body, after years of holding on, finally needed to shut down and process the profound trauma. It was a deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the events of the previous night came flooding back, but the overwhelming emotion had been replaced by something else: determination. A clear, unshakable resolve. I showered, made myself a strong cup of coffee, and sat at my kitchen island with my laptop. It was Sunday, so my office was closed. But I texted my assistant, Sam, who had been with me for 5 years, and knew more about my family situation than anyone except Maya. "Need your help with something personal. Can you come by my apartment around 10 o'clock a.m.? She replied immediately, "Of course. Everything okay?" "It will be," I wrote back. While waiting for Sam, I created a new spreadsheet. This one wasn't just a record of past transactions, but a comprehensive list of all current and future financial commitments I had made to my family. 1. $20,000 anniversary party deposit at the Emerald Spire, already paid, and wasted. 2. $12,000 for Alaska cruise anniversary gift, paid, scheduled for June. 3. $10,000 for Brooke's family trip to Universal Studios, paid, scheduled for May. 4. $1,500 business loan to Leo, funds transferred to a special account but not yet used. 5. $8,000 country club membership renewal for parents, due next week. Total current obligations, $51,500. I stared at the number. $51,500. That was more than many people made in an entire year, and it represented just the current commitments, not the hundreds of thousands already spent. It was an appalling amount. When Sam arrived, her eyes widened at my appearance. Despite the shower and coffee, I clearly looked rough. "Cassidy, what happened?" she asked, setting down her laptop bag, her face etched with concern. I told her everything, keeping my voice steady and factual, stripping the narrative of any raw emotion, presenting it like a case study. Sam had witnessed many phone calls from my family over the years, always about money, always urgent. She had seen me drop everything to wire funds or make calls on their behalf. But even she was shocked by the anniversary party story. "That's beyond cruel, Cass," she said when I finished, her jaw tight. "What do you need from me?" "I need to know my legal position on these financial commitments," I said, pushing the spreadsheet across the island to her. "What can I cancel? What am I legally obligated to follow through on?" Sam, efficient and pragmatic as always, got to work. She called a lawyer friend who specialized in family law and put him on speaker. Without using names, she outlined the situation, sketching the bare bones of the financial arrangements. "The deposit for the event that already occurred is gone," the lawyer advised, his voice calm and clear. "That's considered a rendered service. However, reservations for future events that were made with your credit card are different. You have every right to cancel those, especially if there was no written agreement that these were gifts or a contract detailing terms." "And the business loan?" I asked, focusing on Leo's unused funds. "If the money hasn't been used, and there was no formal loan agreement, no promissory note signed, you can recall those funds," he explained. "It would be different if it had been clearly documented as a gift, with no expectation of repayment, or a formal loan with terms." "None of it was documented," I said, a bitter laugh escaping me. "That was by design. They always kept things verbal, deniable. Just family helping family, they'd say." After the call ended, Sam looked at me, her expression resolute. "What's the plan, boss?" "I'm going to cancel everything," I said firmly, the decision solidified, an unshakable bedrock beneath my feet. Every reservation, every payment, every future commitment, and I'm going to document exactly how much I've given them over the years, so when they inevitably come asking for more, I have a clear, undeniable record to show them. "They'll be furious," Sam warned. Knowing my family's volatile nature as well as I did, I know, I said quietly, the weight of the coming storm settling over me. But I can't keep doing this. Last night made it clear that no amount of money will ever buy their love or respect. I've been trying to purchase a place in their family that they have no intention of giving me. Together, Sam and I expanded the spreadsheet to include all historical transactions. We categorized them by family member, by year, and by type of expense. We even calculated the interest that would have accrued had these been formal loans. We estimated the opportunity cost of these funds had they been invested in my standard portfolio, the way I advise my clients to invest. The final document, once meticulously compiled, was staggering. Over $370,000 in direct payments, nearly $90,000 in estimated lost investment returns based on my average portfolio growth, over $460,000 total. I could have bought a vacation home, I whispered, staring at the number, tears burning in my eyes. But this time, they were tears of profound realization, not just hurt. I could have funded an entire charitable foundation. I could have retired early. You still can, Cass, Sam reminded me gently, her hand on my shoulder. Once you stop the bleeding. We set up email notifications for when the cancellations would be processed. I knew the fallout would be swift and severe. My family would not take this financial cutoff lightly. Are you ready for their reaction? Sam asked as we finished our preparations, the question hanging in the air between us like a heavy shroud. I hesitated for a moment, the familiar guilt and obligation surfacing. Ghosts of my past. Images flashed through my mind. My mother's theatrical tears, my father's booming anger, my siblings' accusatory glares. The family bonds, however dysfunctional, however parasitic, that had defined my entire life, flickered before my eyes. Then I remembered standing in that opulent restaurant lobby, the security guard's firm grip on my elbow, my father's voice, cold and dismissive, echoing in my ears. Get this leech out of here. Yes, I said, my resolve hardening, solidifying into something unyielding. I'm ready. Monday morning arrived with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I had made my decision, and now it was time to execute my plan with the same methodical precision I applied to my professional life. My first call was to the Emerald Spire. I asked for the event manager who had handled my parents' anniversary party. Ms. Hayes, how can I help you? She asked, her voice cautious. She clearly remembered the previous night's scene. I'd like to discuss the charges to my credit card from last night's event, I said calmly, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. Yes, the final bill came to $23,475, including the additional services requested on-site. The charge will process today. I did not authorize those additional charges, I stated, my voice firm. I approved only the initial $20,000 deposit. Furthermore, I was refused entry to the event despite funding it. There was an uncomfortable pause on the other end. I see, this is unusual. What would you like us to do? I will not dispute the initial $20,000 deposit, I said, surprising even myself with the next statement. I had considered demanding it back, but something else occurred to me, a way to reclaim a shred of dignity from the humiliation. But I want the additional charges of $3,475 canceled immediately. And I'd like the record to show that the remainder of the bill should go to Arthur and Eleanor Hayes directly. They were the ones who requested the extra services. I understand, she said carefully. And the $20,000 deposit? Please redirect the deposit as a donation to Portland Children's Hospital, I said, picturing the good that money could do for innocent children. I'd like the donation to be anonymous. Can you arrange that? She sounded surprised, but a note of genuine pleasure entered her voice. Yes, Miss Hayes, we can definitely do that. I'll email you confirmation once it's processed. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. My money, for once, would do something good. Next, I called the cruise line. The Alaska voyage was scheduled for June, a 7-day luxury trip I had booked for my parents as their anniversary gift. I need to cancel a reservation, I told the customer service representative, providing the booking number and the package details. This is a premium reservation with a strict cancellation policy. There will be a fee, the representative informed me. That's fine, I replied, utterly indifferent to the cost. Please process the cancellation and refund the remaining amount to my original payment method. And should we notify the travelers of the cancellation? I considered this for a moment, a small dark smile playing on my lips. No, that won't be necessary. I'll handle that personally. The Universal Studios trip cancellation was next. This one was harder emotionally, as I pictured my niece and nephew's disappointment. They were innocent in all this, just children caught in their parents' web. But I couldn't separate them from their mother's behavior, not financially. Still, I made a mental note to perhaps send them gift cards directly for their birthdays, something just for them. I need to cancel the Hayes family package at Universal Studios Florida, May 15th to 20th, I told the Disney representative. Of course, Ms. Hayes. The cancellation fee is 20% of the package price, she informed me. That's acceptable, I said, my voice unwavering. For Leo's business loan, I contacted my bank. I explained to the branch manager that I needed to freeze the funds in the business account I had set up for him. Since the account was in my name, with Leo merely an authorized user, I had the legal right to restrict access. The funds haven't been touched yet, Ms. Hayes, the bank manager confirmed. We can freeze the account immediately. Please do, I said, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. And send me confirmation when it's done. The country club membership renewal was the easiest. A simple call to the membership office. I won't be renewing the Hayes family membership this year, I informed them. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes have been members for 8 years, the membership director noted, a hint of surprise in her voice. They'll be disappointed. I'm sure they will, I replied, feeling nothing but a profound sense of liberation. By noon, all cancellations had been processed. The only thing left was to prepare for the inevitable backlash. I drafted a simple automatic reply for my family's numbers. Financial services permanently discontinued. All inquiries will be directed to this automated response. I scheduled it to activate at 5 p.m., giving the various organizations time to process the cancellations and potentially notify my family. Then, with a deep breath, I blocked their numbers, temporarily, not permanently, as I wanted to see their reactions, to witness the meltdown. But I needed a buffer, a protective shield, to prepare myself for the storm. That evening, Maya came over with takeout and wine to provide moral support. We sat on my balcony overlooking the glittering Seattle skyline as the autumn sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues. It's done, I told her, raising my glass. Everything's canceled. How do you feel? She asked, her eyes searching mine. I considered the question carefully, truly reflecting on the emotions bubbling within me. Lighter, I finally said, the word a soft exhalation. Like I've put down a burden I've been carrying for so long, I forgot what it felt like not to have it weighing me down. Any regrets? Not about the money, I said honestly, the conviction surprising even myself. But I'm sad about what this reveals, that after all these years, all these sacrifices, they never really saw me as family, just as a resource. Maya raised her glass, a fierce, defiant light in her eyes. To your Independence Day. I clinked my glass against hers. To boundaries. We were halfway through dinner when my phone, which I had placed face up on the coffee table, began to vibrate continuously. I had set it to silent, but the screen lit up with notification after notification. Missed call from Mom, missed call from Dad, missed call from Brooke, text from Leo. What the hell is going on with the business account? Missed call from Mom, voicemail from Dad, text from Brooke. The Universal Studios reservation is showing as canceled. Fix this now. Jack and Emma are devastated. Missed call from Mom, missed call from Mom. Email from Dad. Call immediately. Emergency. The notifications kept coming, increasing in frequency and urgency. A digital tsunami of panic and fury. Within 20 minutes, I had 36 missed calls, dozens of texts, and multiple voicemails. Wow, Maya said, watching the phone vibrate itself almost off the table. That didn't take long. I felt strangely calm as I watched the digital meltdown unfold. A quiet satisfaction settled over me. They must have all found out at once, I mused. Are you going to respond? Maya asked. I shook my head. Not tonight. They need to sit with this feeling for a while. The feeling of having something they were counting on suddenly pulled away without explanation. Maya gave me a look of pure admiration. You're handling this like a boss, Cass. I am a boss, I replied, a genuine smile, the first I'd felt in days, stretching across my face. It's about time I remembered that. We finished dinner, the wine warm and comforting. Maya left around 9 p.m., after making me promise to call her if anything escalated. I took a long bath, ignoring the continuing notifications from my phone, the insistent pings and flashes. I slept deeply for the second night in a row, unburdened by the weight of impossible expectations. The pounding on my door started at 7:00 a.m. The aggressive, incessant knocking jolted me awake. For a moment, I was disoriented, my mind still in the peaceful realm of sleep, but the angry, indignant voices in the hallway quickly reminded me of yesterday's events, of the calm before the storm. "Cassidy, open this door right now." My father's voice, Arthur, commanding as always, boomed through the solid wood. "We know you're in there." My mother, Eleanor, shrill with indignation, added her voice to the chorus. I slipped on a robe and approached the door cautiously. Through the peephole, I could see them, my parents, Brooke, and Leo, all crowded in the hallway, their faces contorted with anger. My father's complexion was approaching a dangerous level of red. Brooke's usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled. Her eyes narrowed. Leo was fidgeting, a vein throbbing in his temple. They looked like a collective storm cloud. I took a deep breath, centered myself, and opened the door. "What is the meaning of this?" my father demanded, pushing past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation, his eyes already sweeping the stylish living room with a look of disdain. The others followed, creating a semicircle of fury in my living room, trapping me. "Good morning to you too," I said calmly, closing the door behind them, my voice even, steady, unnerving them. "I see you all got my messages." "Messages?" Brooke shrieked, her voice high-pitched with outrage. "You canceled our Universal Studios vacation without a word. Jack and Emma have been looking forward to this for months. They're crying." "The cruise line called us," my mother added, her voice trembling with what I now recognized as manufactured emotion, a performance for my benefit. "They said our anniversary cruise was canceled. We'll be humiliated in front of our friends. We already announced it at the party." Leo stepped forward, his face twisted with self-righteous anger. "You froze the business account. I have suppliers waiting for payment. You've destroyed my reputation, Cassidy. My business is ruined." My father's voice, a low, dangerous rumble, cut through the cacophony. "Fix this now, Cassidy. Whatever game you're playing stops immediately." They all stared at me expectantly, confident in their collective ability to bring me back in line. In the past, it would have worked. The crushing weight of guilt, the suffocating cloak of obligation, the desperate, aching need for their approval, all of it would have had me reaching for my phone to undo everything, to beg forgiveness, to appease them. But something had fundamentally changed inside me. The cracks had been too deep, the wound too grievous. My core had shifted. "No," I said simply. The single word landed like a bomb in the room. There was a moment of stunned, absolute silence. Their expressions, frozen in disbelief, were almost comical. Then, they all started talking at once again, voices rising in pitch and volume, a chaotic symphony of accusation and indignation. "You're clearly having some kind of breakdown, Cassidy," my mother declared, her voice laced with mock concern. "This is why you're always alone," Brooke snapped, a cruel jab designed to wound. "You're unstable. I'll sue you," Leo threatened, his face flushed. "That money was promised to me." My father stepped close, using his height and bulk to try to intimidate me, just as he had when I was a child. His eyes bore into mine, cold and menacing. "You will fix this mess right now, Cassidy, or you are no longer part of this family." That was it. That was the line, the breaking point. I laughed then. A genuine, unbidden laugh. It wasn't a laugh of amusement, but of pure, bitter irony, of profound liberation. It stopped their tirade in its tracks. They stared at me, dumbfounded. "Not part of the family," I repeated, my voice calm, almost conversational, despite the tremor in my hands. "When was I ever part of the family? When you needed your mortgage paid? When Leo needed another failed business funded? When Brooke wanted a fairy tale wedding that bled me dry? That's not family, that's exploitation." I walked to my desk, picked up the printed spreadsheet, the meticulous record of my servitude, and the small digital recorder I had strategically placed there. I held the spreadsheet up, the thick stack of papers rustling. In the past 10 years, I have given this family $372,845.38. I paused, letting the number hang in the air, a monument to their greed. That doesn't include the additional $51,500 in current commitments I just canceled. I handed the document to my father, who took it automatically, his eyes momentarily widening at the staggering figure on the top line. Everything is itemized there, I continued, my voice steady, unyielding. Every payment, every gift, every loan that was never repaid, plus the calculated interest and opportunity cost, nearly $500,000. They stared at the paper, momentarily silenced by the sheer magnitude of the figure, their indignation momentarily eclipsed by shock. We're your family, my mother finally sputtered, as if that explained and excused everything. A sacred cow that excused all trespasses. Family doesn't have security remove me from an event I paid for, I replied evenly. My gaze fixed on my father. Family doesn't call me a leech. My father's head snapped up. You're being oversensitive, Cassidy. It was a misunderstanding. I was upset. Upset? I challenged, a ghost of a smile playing on my lips. Let's see how upset you sounded. I walked to my phone and played the recording I'd made in my car after leaving the restaurant. My voice, tearful and shaky, recounted exactly what had happened. Every word still fresh in my memory, every agonizing detail. Then came the chilling clarity of the recording. Get this leech out of here! My father's voice, perfectly captured, cold and disgusted. Brooke, at least, had the decency to look uncomfortable, her eyes darting nervously away. Leo studied his shoes, trying to disappear. My mother's expression hardened, a mask of denial. You're taking things out of context, she insisted, her voice tight. Your father was upset. You're right, Mom, I agreed, the irony heavy in my voice. I have been taking things out of context for years. I've been interpreting financial exploitation as love. I've been mistaking my usefulness for belonging. That stops now. So what? You're just cutting us off, or? Leo demanded, his self-pity palpable. After everything we've done for you? I turned to him, genuinely curious. What exactly have you done for me, Leo? He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to cite a single example. His face twisting in frustrated silence. This is how it's going to be, I said, addressing all of them, my voice firm, resolute. I will no longer provide financial support of any kind to any of you. No loans, no gifts, no payments. You are all adults with jobs, homes, and resources. Figure it out. You'll change your mind, Cassidy, my father said dismissively, regaining some of his bluster. You always do. Not this time, I replied, meeting his gaze directly. This time, I have something worth more than your approval, my self-respect. You're being selfish, Cassidy, my mother accused, her voice rising, after all we've sacrificed for you. What sacrifices, Mom? Please enlighten me, I challenged, my patience wearing thin. When did any of you ever put me first? When did you ever show up for me when I needed emotional support, not just to collect a check? The silence was damning. They had no answer. There was only the uncomfortable shuffling of feet, the averted gazes. You need help, Brooke finally said, her voice laced with feigned concern. A desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative. Professional help. On that, we agree, I replied, a small, knowing smile touching my lips. I started therapy last week. My therapist has a term for what's been happening. She calls it financial abuse. That's ridiculous, my father scoffed, his face contorting in disgust. You're the one cutting off your family when we need you. You need my money, I corrected, emphasizing the distinction. Not me, never me. The conversation devolved from there. Threats were made. Tears were shed, mostly by my mother, who seemed capable of turning them on and off like a faucet. My character, my mental health, and my moral fiber were all called into question. I remained calm, repeating my position clearly and concisely each time they tried to find a crack in my resolve. Each time they launched a fresh volley of accusations. After nearly an hour of emotional battering, they finally realized I wasn't going to cave. The well was dry. The ATM was closed for good. This isn't over, Cassidy, my father declared, as they moved toward the door, his face a mask of thwarted rage. You'll regret this decision. I already regret the past 10 years, I replied honestly, my voice imbued with a newfound strength. But I won't regret today. As they filed out, my mother turned back with one final, desperate attempt to wield her favorite weapon: social manipulation. What will people think when they hear how you've abandoned your family, Cassidy? I don't know, Mom, I said, a faint, almost pitying smile on my face. What did they think when they watched you have security escort me out of a party I paid for? She had no answer for that. Her face flushed, and she turned and hurried out, followed by Brooke and Leo, who didn't even meet my gaze. After they left, I leaned against the closed door, expecting to feel devastated, heartbroken, perhaps even guilty. Instead, I felt strangely peaceful. The confrontation had been ugly, raw, and necessary. The threats and manipulation that had worked so effectively in the past now seemed transparent, pathetic, stripped of their power. The emotional shackles I'd worn for decades had finally shattered. My phone pinged with a text. I braced myself for more family drama, another desperate plea, or furious accusation. But it wasn't from any of them. It was from my cousin, Chloe. "Cassidy," the text read. "I saw what they did to you at the party. It was cruel and wrong. I wanted to say something, but I was too cowardly. I'm sorry, for what it's worth. I'm proud of you for finally standing up for yourself." It was the first genuine expression of support I'd received from any family member, perhaps ever outside of my grandmother. I texted back a simple, "Thank you, that means a lot." Perhaps I wasn't completely alone in the extended family after all. It was a small comfort, a tiny ray of light, but it was real, and reality, however painful, was infinitely better than the illusion I'd been living in for so long. 6 months passed like a dream. Autumn arrived in Portland, painting the city in rich oranges, fiery reds, and deep purples. The crisp air was a metaphor for the clarity I'd found in my life. The immediate aftermath of the confrontation had been challenging, just as Sam had predicted. My family had tried various approaches to regain their financial foothold in my life. My father sent formal, legal-sounding emails demanding repayment for all they had supposedly invested in raising me. My mother left tearful voicemails about mysterious medical issues that miraculously resolved themselves when I didn't respond. Leo claimed his latest business venture was failing because of my treacherous actions. Brooke sent photos of her disappointed children, Jack and Emma, captioned with guilt-inducing messages about their canceled Universal Studios trip. I maintained my boundaries through it all, responding to nothing, engaging with none of it. Instead, I focused on my own healing journey. Dr. Elena Ramirez, my therapist, had been instrumental in that process. Our weekly sessions, conducted in her calming office with a view of the city's green hills, helped me unpack decades of emotional manipulation and recognize patterns I'd been blind to. "Family systems like yours don't develop overnight," she explained during one particularly insightful session. "Your role as the provider was established early and reinforced consistently. Breaking free requires not just setting boundaries, but maintaining them through the inevitable pushback." The pushback had indeed been fierce. Flying monkeys were deployed. Distant relatives and family friends, whom I barely knew, started calling to tell me how devastated my parents were, how I needed to reconcile before it was too late, how I was breaking their hearts. I politely but firmly ended these conversations, refusing to justify my decisions to people who had watched the exploitation for years without comment. Their silence in the face of my suffering had spoken volumes. My professional life flourished as I redirected the energy previously consumed by family drama. Without the constant drain of their financial emergencies, I found myself with both more capital and more mental bandwidth for growth. I expanded my client base significantly, hired 2 new financial advisors, and was even featured in a prominent regional financial magazine as one of Portland's top wealth management specialists. The irony was not lost on me. Cutting off my family had made me even more successful. New friendships blossomed too. Through a support group for survivors of family financial abuse, I met Liam, Sarah, and Noah, who understood my experience in ways even Maya, my incredibly supportive best friend, couldn't. Our monthly dinners became a safe space for sharing victories and setbacks in our parallel journeys of healing and self-discovery. We laughed, we cried, we strategized, we celebrated each other's small acts of defiance. As October arrived, marking a full year since that fateful night at the Emerald Spire, I faced my first holiday season with my new boundaries intact. Thanksgiving had always been a fraught occasion in the Hayes family, elaborate celebrations that I was expected to fund but never fully welcomed into, always relegated to the role of glorified guest. This year would be different. "I'm hosting Friendsgiving," I announced to Maya over coffee one morning. "Will you come?" "Try and stop me," she grinned. "Who else are you inviting?" "The support group crew, some colleagues, Sam and her husband," I began, then hesitated. And actually, my cousin Chloe reached out again after her initial text of support. Chloe and I had cautiously reconnected. She shared that my parents had spent years controlling the family narrative about me, painting me as cold, work-obsessed, and uninterested in family bonds. My public disinheritance, as they characterized it, had actually created fissures in the extended family, with some questioning the established narrative for the first time. Chloe said she and her husband want to come, I continued, and possibly my Aunt Susan, my mom's sister. Maya raised an eyebrow. Brave woman. Apparently she and Mom aren't speaking anymore, I said, a small surprised smile on my face. Aunt Susan called her out about what happened at the anniversary party, said it was unforgivable. The Friendsgiving dinner was a revelation. 16 people gathered in my apartment, none demanding anything from me except conversation, connection, and shared laughter. Chloe brought a homemade pumpkin pie and a decade of family gossip I'd been excluded from, filling me in on the nuances of their dysfunctional dynamics. Aunt Susan arrived with a small, aged envelope. "I should have given you this years ago, Cassidy," she said privately. As guests mingled around us, the gentle hum of conversation filling the room. "Your grandmother, Rose, asked me to pass it along after she died. But your mother, she convinced me to wait until you were more stable." She made air quotes around the last words, her disgust with the manipulation evident in her eyes. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter, the familiar elegant script of my Grandma Rose, and a bank statement. I read the letter with growing amazement, a lump forming in my throat. "My dearest Cassidy," my grandmother had written, "you have always been special to me. Your intelligence, your kindness, your resilience. I see how your parents failed to appreciate these qualities, too blinded by their own needs to recognize your true worth. I am leaving you this separate inheritance directly. Your mother doesn't know about it. Use it to build the life you deserve, not the ones they demand from you. I was waiting for you to stand up for yourself. When you do, Susan will give you this letter. I have faith that day will come. All my love, Grandma Rose." The bank statement showed a trust in my name worth $175,000. It had been accumulating interest for 7 years since her death. "She knew," I whispered to Aunt Susan, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "She saw what was happening." "Eleanor was nobody's fool," Aunt Susan replied, her eyes kind. "She saw everything clearly, including your strength. She knew you'd break free eventually. She always said you had a fire in you that your parents couldn't extinguish." News about my birth family trickled in through Chloe and other channels. Without my financial support, certain realities had come crashing down. My parents had been forced to downsize significantly, selling their large suburban home and moving into a modest condo. Leo's latest business venture, a cryptocurrency consulting firm, had failed spectacularly without my emergency infusions of cash. Brooke and her husband had to cancel their elaborate kitchen renovation plans, and she even had to pick up an extra shift at her part-time job. There were consequences for me too, of course. I was officially disowned, my name allegedly removed from their wills, not that there would be much to inherit anyway. I was no longer mentioned at family gatherings, according to Chloe. My mother, in a fit of rage, had removed all photos of me from their home. Strangely, these developments caused me less pain than I had anticipated. The family I had desperately tried to buy my way into, the idealized version I had clung to, had never truly existed. The love I had sought had always been conditional, based on what I could provide rather than who I was. Their rejection, once my deepest fear, had become my greatest liberation. In December, I received an unexpected message from my father. Unlike the angry demands and threats of previous communications, this one was brief and subdued. "Your mother and I are having coffee at Pioneer Courthouse Square tomorrow at 2 p.m. If you're available, we'd like to talk." I discussed it with Dr. Ramirez in our session that afternoon. "What do you want to do, Cassidy?" she asked, her gaze unwavering. "Part of me is curious," I admitted, testing the waters of my own emotions. Another part is afraid they'll try to pull me back in somehow, that they'll manipulate me again. "Those are both valid feelings." She nodded, her pen poised over her notebook. "If you choose to go, what boundaries would you need to make this meeting feel safe for you?" I considered this carefully. Public place, limited time, no financial discussions, absolutely none. "Those sound like healthy protective boundaries," she confirmed. "Remember, Cassidy, you can leave at any time if those boundaries are not respected. Your safety, emotional and otherwise, is paramount. I agreed to the meeting with clear parameters: 30 minutes, no discussion of money, public location only. My parents looked older when I saw them the next day. My father's confident posture was diminished, his shoulders slumped. My mother's usual designer clothes were replaced by more modest attire, her perfectly coiffed hair slightly less vibrant. For a moment, a fleeting ghost-like sensation. I felt the old pull of guilt and responsibility, the ingrained desire to fix things. But I breathed through it, as Dr. Ramirez had taught me, anchoring myself in the present, in my new reality. "Thank you for coming, Cassidy," my father said, uncharacteristically subdued, his voice almost hollow. The conversation that followed was stilted and superficial. We talked about the weather, current events, careful avoidance of anything meaningful or remotely emotional. They asked about my work, but didn't seem to truly listen to my answers. It was a dance of politeness, hollow and uncomfortable. Finally, as our agreed-upon time neared its end, my mother reached across the table, her hand resting briefly on mine. "We miss you, Cassidy." I met her eyes directly, searching for any genuine emotion, any hint of remorse or understanding. "Do you miss me, Mom?" I asked, my voice soft but firm. "Or what I provided?" She withdrew her hand, her face stiffening. My father cleared his throat. An uncomfortable sound. "We've had to make some adjustments," he acknowledged, his gaze drifting over my shoulder to the bustling square outside. "It's been challenging." "I imagine it has," I said neutrally, offering no sympathy, no balm for their self-inflicted wounds. "Your sister's children ask about you," my mother added, her voice taking on a slightly manipulative edge once more, especially at Christmas. I thought about Jack and Emma, innocent in the adult drama, caught in the crossfire. "They can call me any time," I said clearly, looking directly at my parents. "They're welcome in my home, without their parents." My mother's tone sharpened, a flicker of the old indignation returning. "Cassidy, you can't possibly mean—" "My boundaries haven't changed," I replied calmly, cutting her off. "I'm open to rebuilding relationships, but not financial relationships, and I will not tolerate manipulation or disrespect. That includes using my niece and nephew to guilt me." They exchanged glances, a familiar silent communication that had always excluded me, always left me on the outside looking in. My father sighed, a heavy, resigned sound. "We should go," he said to my mother. To me, he offered one last, almost wistful piece of advice, tinged with a subtle threat. "Think about what family really means, Cassidy." I smiled slightly. "I have, every day, for the past 6 months." As they walked away, disappearing into the crowd of shoppers and tourists in Pioneer Courthouse Square, I realized something profound. Their power over me was gone, not just financially, but emotionally. Their approval, so desperately sought for decades, no longer determined my worth. Their disapproval, once a source of paralyzing fear, was now just noise. That evening, I hosted a holiday party in my apartment. Friends, colleagues, my growing circle of chosen family gathered to celebrate. Sam brought her new baby, cooing softly in her arms. Maya announced her engagement, her face beaming. Noah from the support group shared that he'd finally sold his novel, a dream he'd been chasing for years. As I looked around at these people, Liam, Sarah, Chloe, Aunt Susan, who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide, who truly saw me, I felt my grandmother's presence, warm and comforting, surrounding me. She had seen this day coming. She had believed in my strength when I couldn't see it myself. The inheritance she'd left me remained largely untouched, a testament to her faith and my newfound financial independence. I had established a small foundation with a portion of it, providing educational grants to young people estranged from family support systems, helping them build the lives they deserved. The rest waited for a purpose worthy of her faith in me, a future project, a way to pay forward the love I had finally found. My phone buzzed, a text from Chloe. "Proud of you for today, boundaries intact." Eleanor would be beaming. I smiled, a genuine, radiant smile, and rejoined my guests. The apartment was warm with conversation and laughter, decorated with twinkling lights that reflected in the windows overlooking the vibrant Portland skyline. This was what real family felt like: chosen, reciprocal, unconditional. The journey hadn't been easy. There would be more challenges ahead, more boundary tests, more moments of doubt, because healing isn't linear. But I had found something more valuable than approval: more enduring than the false security of dysfunctional bonds. I had found myself. I had found freedom. And that, my friends, is priceless. So I have to ask you, have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family or friends who saw you as an ATM rather than a person? What was that experience like? How did it change you? Drop a comment below and share your story. If this story of breaking free from financial abuse resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, your worth isn't measured by what you provide others. It's inherent in who you are. Thank you for being part of this journey with me.